As witches, we are always looking for different ways to bring more of the magical into our mundane lives. And this in turn can help us raise our vibration. It makes it easier to access our spiritual gifts and our intuition. It makes it easier to connect to the divine. And so, from eating with the seasons to creating an affirmation jar to lift your spirits when you need that, to creating a sacred space in your workplace. There are so many different things that you can do to add a touch of the magic into your mundane world. So, Merry Meet, I'm Aislin. This is Ask Aislin, and we are here tonight talking about how to spiritualize your daily life. So, saying hello to those who are joining us live. Welcome, everyone. I see Jamie's in the chat. Merry Meet. And we are going to dive in just a second. But for those who are live, make sure to leave a question or comment if you have any. We'll have Q&A at the end, and I'll be answering everyone's questions. And if you are watching in replay, you can also leave questions, and I'll go back later and I will answer your question then. So we are going to go ahead and dive in. There's a lot of things to talk about tonight, and I just wanted to start by kind of talking about why it's so important to be able to spiritualize our daily lives. People ask me a lot of questions all the time. It's kind of the point of the show. The show came out of all the questions that people were always asking me. And some of the questions I get asked most frequently are, how do I connect to the divine? How do I better connect to myself? How do I strengthen my intuition? How do I accelerate my spiritual growth? And there's like a variety of different answers that are specific to those questions, but one thread that really runs through all of them is this idea of spiritualizing our lives and bringing more of that magical into the mundane. The idea here is that when we can become more connected to what is going on around us, we're better able to access those deeper levels of ourselves. Otherwise, we're kind of living in this sort of surface, sort of survival world, which is sometimes where we have to be. Like if you are somebody experiencing natural disasters like we are in Southern California with all the fires, it pushes you into that kind of survival mode, and the more spiritual aspects go out the window, at least temporarily, because you're more operating in your root chakra than you are in your more upper chakras. And outside of natural disasters or kind of very traumatic events that people can experience, there's just a thread throughout our modern world that makes us more disconnected. We are connected to devices, which means that we're less connected to the things that are going on outside of us. Oftentimes we are overscheduled and there are too many things for us to do. We can't fit them all into our daily lives, and that leaves us feeling kind of ungrounded too. The news that is broadcast out to us carries with it pain and suffering that we might not otherwise know about if we weren't so connected to the news. So, for example, something like the wildfires right now, you can be all the way across the world and you can watch the devastation that's happening here. I've received messages from people in other countries asking me if we're okay. But if you think about it, 100 years ago, things like that wouldn't be possible. Eventually, you would get news, but you wouldn't get it at the snap of your fingers or just by logging in online. And so where I'm going with this is that because we're so connected, we're connected to more people suffering than just our own and just our community, because the world has become so big. And so there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. Um, but what it does create is a world where we are we are less connected to what is going on presently around us. And what that means is we just need to do something to make sure that we stay connected. And so I'm hoping that after today's episode, it will give you some ideas, some food for thought on just some simple things, maybe things you never even thought about, that can help bring that little touch of magic in, and will help you stay more present, help you stay more connected to where you are, even when the modern world is going on around you. Um, all right, so we are going to be talking about, when I first wrote this, I wrote down 7 different ways. I think it's more like 9 different ways once I finished the episode But we're going to talk about 9 different ways that we can do this. And I also invite you, whether you're live or you're watching back in replay, I also invite you to share in the chat what are the ways you use to keep yourself connected. How do you spiritualize your life? How do you add touches of magic to your daily life? So we'd love to hear from you guys too. All right, so let us dive in with the very first thing, and the first thing we're going to talk about is color. But first, I see that there's a lot of comments here, people saying hello. At first, I could just see Jamie in the chat. It's kind of strange how the lives go. I can't always see the comments until I press a bunch of buttons, and now I see Nancy is also here, and Jess, and Kurt, and Cindy, and Amy, and Joanne, and Jason's with us, and Tracy, Sabrina's here, Tommy, and Glitter. So marry me to all of you. Welcome, and so great to have you with us live. Okay, so let us talk about the first idea, which is using color to change your vibration. So color is a very simple way and in a very effective way that not only can we change our vibrations, but also it's a way that we can access and work with our chakras. And so it's an idea that often we forget because it's so simple, and we think about all of these more complex ways to balance chakras and kind of bring in balance. And color is right there in front of it. It's us. It's one of the easiest things that we can do. So really consider connecting to a specific color each day. And you can connect those colors to the chakras. So that's another question I get asked a lot is how do I kind of balance and reset my chakras? What's a really simple way to do that? Well, this is a very simple way. So starting on Monday, and it doesn't really matter which day you start because there are 7 days of the week and there are 7 chakras and there are 7 colors attached to those chakras. So you can start on any day, but let's say we're starting on a Monday. So on the Monday, you can start with the root chakra, and the color of the root chakra is red. So on Monday, or whatever day you start kind of this cycle, figure out ways to bring more red into your life. And so color isn't just about the clothing we wear or the jewelry we wear. It can be about other things. It can be about candles. It can be about flowers. It can be about the color Post-it notes that you use, the color lipstick you wear. So there's a lot of different ways that we can bring color into our life. So see if on one day a week you can bring in the color red, and that immediately helps you tap into your root chakra. Other thing, we're going to be talking about food in a little bit later, but you can also bring in color with your food. So eating red foods and kind of highlighting those in your meal during the day that you're working with the root chakra. And then we move to the second day. So let's just say we've started on Monday. So we move to Tuesday, and you can work with the color orange. The color orange is connected to your sacral chakra. And then we're sort of working up through the chakra system as we go. And so you wear a touch of orange that day, or more than a touch. You eat orange foods. You burn an orange candle. And you can see where this can go. It can become a very powerful practice. And sometimes, too, people say to me, I don't have time. I don't have any time to do anything, and I feel like I'm falling out of my practice. And so this can be, it doesn't really take time to pull a piece of red clothing or a piece of red jewelry, out of what you already have and put that on. Another idea here is that you could go, ahead of time when you're gonna start this practice, and you can get a colored candles of all the colors of the chakras. And so you can have a specific one that you burn on Monday, and you just burn it for a little bit, and you burn the red candle, right? And then you burn the orange one on Tuesday. So moving on to the third day, Wednesday, we could move up to the solar plexus, and we could work with the color yellow. And then on Thursday, moving up to the heart chakra, we could work with the color green. On Friday, we could work with the throat chakra and the color blue. On Saturday, the color purple connects us to the third eye. And then finally on Sunday, we could work with the color white, which helps us connect to the crown. So you can see how powerful and how simple at the same time this particular practice could be. Also, you can find different ways to connect color. So I've just offered some suggestions with stones and clothing and jewelry, makeup, foods that you eat, I think I already said flowers, post-it notes, different things that you're bringing in around you. But I'm sure that you guys can come up with some other ideas and different ways that you could bring in color as well. Um, so, what I also had written down here too is if you prefer to work a little more slowly with the colors rather than going 1 day a week and you're connecting one color to each day, you can also slow it down and you can have one color and one chakra be the theme of a week or even the theme of a month. So the possibilities really are endless for how we can bring color into our lives, and but the reality is that it is a very real and very powerful practice, and also a very, very simple one. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the second idea here, but before I do, I'm seeing some great ideas in the chat already. So Jamie is talking about daily tarot readings, pulling a card daily, daily chakra balancing chant. So having a different chant every day that you're going to use to balance a chakra. And then she says, but I am bad at keeping a schedule. Yeah, and that's always challenging for people too, especially if you're somebody who has your schedule shifting constantly. It can be hard to like stay on the schedule. And so that's why I always say, if you're somebody who's really busy like that, sometimes the candle is the easiest thing to do, because it's just, make it as part of your routine. It's like when you are kind of winding down for bed or when you're waking up in the morning, just have the candle be part of the daily sort of rituals that you're doing, the mundane rituals like brushing your teeth and all of that, and just light the candle. um, but I love all the ideas, daily tarot, daily chakra balancing chants. Cindy said mirror gazing is the way that she tries to connect to her horned god, and then she's also trying to learn tarot. Jamie said daily journaling can also help because she loves writing. So she said, while she's bad at the daily part, she absolutely loves the journal and all the time on spiritual matters. Yeah, exactly. And really what it all comes down to at the end of this is that it doesn't matter what you do as long as you're doing something. And so it's really the key here is to find something that works for you. Tommy said meditating daily, and he said oftentimes more than once a day. Yeah, and the thing is too is once you weave it into your routine, it's sort of like brushing your teeth. It becomes it's like kind of unthinkable to not do it. And so I love these ideas. So definitely keep them coming. So the next idea we're going to talk about is bibliomancy, and I think that this one is a lot of fun, and I was going to demonstrate. So we're going to do it. We're just going to do it on the fly, but the problem is it's a little dark in here, and I'm hoping I can read, because it's a little hard to read in the dark nowadays for me. But um, but let's talk about what bibliomancy is, and I'm going to grab a book and we're going to try it. So bibliomancy is basically a way that we can get information through books and through words and through language. So we can use a book, the pages of a book. We can use passages, full passages. We can use just a line of a book to gain some kind of spiritual knowledge or guidance. Now, bibliomancy is a very ancient form of divination. It dates back thousands and thousands of years. Jewish scholars used the Torah to divine information from the words that were written in the Torah. The Chinese culture has the I Ching. So there are, you can see it's not a new idea. It's not something we're just making up now. It's something that's very old and a very revered practice. Now, the possibilities here are really endless. You can use a spiritual text if you want, like we talked about the Torah, the I Ching. People have used the Bible, or it can be any, but it really can be any book, because the idea here is that you're going to allow yourself to be guided by synchronicity. And the synchronicity draws you towards the words that you need to hear at that moment. So if that's the case, then it doesn't make any difference what the book is. So you can choose a favorite book. You can choose a book that you always use. Maybe there's just one book that you use for bibliomancy. You can go to a bookcase. You can get into kind of a light meditative state, close your eyes. You can, run your fingers over the books. I know so many of you are really big book fans, and I know you got a ton of books. So just sort of run your fingers over the books And kind of like the way, that's how I like to choose tarot cards, is I spread them all out and then I run my fingers over them, and there's just sort of a change in the vibration when it's the card that I'm ready to pick. And so you can do something similar to that with the books. Just notice if there's a change in sort of the way that the book feels, and then pull that book out. And so we are gonna let us demonstrate one now. So I'm just trying to think of a book that might have bigger writing for me. Um, okay, I gotta stand up for a second and grab a book. So I'm just gonna grab randomly. This is another option we can do too, is we can just grab randomly. So okay, so I grabbed three. Hopefully I can read one of these. Okay, so when you start this, you get to make up the rules. Okay, so the rules can be that you just randomly turn to a page and you read whatever is there. The rules can be that you choose the page, like, so going ahead of time, you say, I'm going to open up to page 100 and I'm going to look for the fourth line or the fourth paragraph or whatever it is. You get to make up the rules, and there isn't a right or wrong to it. You just make them up ahead of time and then you follow whatever the rule is. So I have Ted Andrews' book Animal Speak. I think I'm going to be able to read this. So I just randomly, let's try it with just randomly opening it. It says, an examination of the individual characteristics and behaviors of the eagle will reveal even more of the medicine and proven attunement will bring to you. Okay, let me read that again because I need glasses. Okay, an examination of the individual characteristics and behaviors of the eagle will reveal even more of the medicine and power attunement will bring to you. Okay, so reading that I've opened up a page about the eagle. So now what I want to do is, like, if I'm practicing bibliomancy, I don't want it just to stop there. I want to begin to have this idea color my day. I want to contemplate the passage. I want to think about how it speaks to me, if there's something in my life that I connect this to, and this is where the power of your of kind of synchronicity happens, and you just really let your mind make the connections it makes. Don't second guess it. This is a key for anything in your spiritual practice, is try not to second guess things. Take it at face value. If you get proven like that something's wrong later, whatever, we just reassess where we are. But what's coming to my mind is that with all the wildfires going on, and I was updating people frequently throughout, letting people know what was happening to us, and I would put a picture up with many of my posts, and the picture I put up most recently was one of an eagle with its wings spread. So, and there was a sun in the background, and so I'm kind of thinking about that picture. So now what I would do is I'm making kind of that connection. So maybe there's some information connecting back to the fires or something like that I need to continue to contemplate or work through. It can also be just an indication that I'm in the right place. Like, I picked that picture to kind of show that we were safe, that we were okay, and maybe that validates that. So see how there's just so much that we can do with it. Alternatively, like I said, rather than just kind of randomly opening up to the page like I did, you can choose a page, like a page 100, line number 4, and then use that to guide you. But try bibliomancy once a day if you want. Try it a couple times a week. See where it goes. It can be a really fun experiment. And sometimes, like, at first we might think, oh, what could that? It's just randomly pulling a book off the shelf. But we can really gain a lot of insight, and now I could move forward into the rest of my day. I could do a meditation on an eagle later. There's something about the spirit of the eagle that wants to talk to me right now, and that is the take-home message that I get from my session of bibliomancy. Okay, so let us I guess there's a little bit more I was going to just mention about bibliomancy. It is a great way to receive messages and wisdom and insight. And so right now, I've used the power of synchronicity to sort of just pull out a random passage just for random information. But you can also set an intention. You can have a question and then practice bibliomancy. Perhaps you want to connect to your higher self, or you want to receive insight from your guides, or perhaps there is a relative who's crossed through the veils and you want insight from that person. You can also use bibliomancy to receive information from others, across the veils, or from your own higher self. So get really curious about the practice. The more you practice it, I think the better you get, just like all the practices. But try it out if you've never done it before, and just see what happens. Okay. Jamie said that she used to use bibliomancy with the Bible. She said way back in the day before she even knew it was a thing. Yeah, and that's really cool too, is when we find that we've been doing practices that are, other people have done, and we were just kind of drawn to them and started doing them, and then we find out later, well, there's a name to this, and other people are doing it too, and it just shows how connected we really are. Sonia said that she reads cards like that too. Yeah, that's always been my favorite way to read them. I find it actually it changes with different decks. So with some decks, I just like to shuffle them, and then I just sort of pull the deck apart and pull the first card up on the second half of the deck. But this has always been my favorite way. Is just kind of run my hands over it, and it really feels like my hands stop. And they won't move. It's almost like it won't move any further once I've reached the card that's the right one to pull. And Cindy said she's trying to understand tarot. She said, "Can I do a class on tarot?" Yeah, we could definitely do that. Yeah, I already put that on the list, so we got that one in the works for sure. Okay, so let us talk about the next idea, and this is the affirmation jar. The affirmation jar is a fantastic way to bring the spiritual into your daily life. And I think that it can also be a really good way to reprogram negative thoughts and limiting beliefs that you might battle against. So if you are somebody who has the cheetah-vriti, that monkey mind always going, and it's telling you a lot of negative things, like, for example, everybody has about 80,000 thoughts a day. It's really kind of crazy to contemplate that. And the majority of those are either repetitive, and they're just going on and on and on, or they are negative, or they're irrelevant. They've got like nothing to do with the situation. And so if you can catch yourself in that space, like when you are thinking negative thoughts, and if you can stop and you can write that negative thought down, you can then use it for your affirmation jar. So what I would do is make a day, take a day, like an hour or so, or I would just pick a day when you're going to kind of practice this, and see if you can pay attention to the negative thoughts. Now, what's going to happen is, I said there's 80,000, right? So you're not going to hear all 80,000 of those, but every once in a while you're going to sort of key in, and you're going to notice, okay, that's kind of a negative thought. And you're going to write that down on a piece of paper or a notebook or whatever. And then kind of go about your day, then notice, every time that you notice yourself in a negative thought, write that thought down. See if there's a lot of them that are repetitive. I'm going to guess that the theme kind of goes on and on and on. But then you're going to take those negative thoughts and you are going to negate them, which means you're just going to change them so they're not negative thoughts anymore. So one of the easiest ones is about money. Everybody seems to worry, not everybody, but a lot of people worry about money and stability and security and things like that. So a person might have a negative thought that says, I'll never make enough money to be comfortable in my life. So all we have to do to negate it is take out the word never. I will have enough money to be comfortable in my life. In fact, make it even better, make it in the present. I have enough money to be comfortable in my life. So you just take anything that's negative and you negate it. Now, you don't have to believe it. It's not about like, you're not going to just turn a switch and okay, all of a sudden all your negative thoughts are now positive thoughts. It doesn't really work that way. We wish, but it doesn't really work that way. But what you're going to do then is you're going to take all those negative thoughts that you've now negated and made into more positive thoughts, and you're going to put them into a jar. And hopefully you can gather a good amount of them, maybe 50 maybe even 100 eventually, maybe not that much, but at least if you could get like 20 or 30 and you put them in that jar. And then over time, you're going to accumulate more, because you're going to notice you have negative thoughts. You're going to accumulate more of these. And then the other thing you can also do, add to your jar, is anytime that you come across like a meme that has a cool quote, like an inspiring quote, or just something that really resonates with you, write it down. Write down little affirmations if you hear other people saying them, or you see someone post it somewhere. Write those things down too. So the idea here is that we just have a lot of positivity that we're putting in the jar. And once you've got 20 or 30 pieces, strips of paper with something on it, whether it's your negated negative thoughts or affirmations or quotes, you will be able to kind of use this at this point. So you are going to put your hand into the jar. So just like with the book, you're going to allow your synchronicity to pick a affirmation or a thought or a negated negative thought or a mantra or a quote that you need most right there. And you have this little, like, you can literally even do divination with this eventually. But the idea is you don't have to make all of it all at once. You're making it over time, and you're adding to it over time. You can get into it. You can decorate the jar, and then especially when you're going through really negative times, you have the jar. You can pull something from it too when you need a pick me up, when you need something to lift you up. I was even thinking about this just as we're talking, is when the fires, especially were burning very close to our house, and there were a lot of people who were sending me, putting comments on some of my posts, and they were just so sweet and so kind comments. And that would be another thing. Like if people leave you nice comments, write those down on the strips of paper, put those in the jar. Because the idea is that you just accumulate as much as you can so you can use this and you have a lot to choose from. So I really like this idea. Sometimes people think it's hokey. They don't even want to try it. But honestly, if you're somebody who ever gets plagued by negative thoughts and negativity, which is a lot of us, it's worth trying. It's worth trying to see if it's a practice that will kind of pick you up. Okay, so that is going to segue us into talking a little bit about eating, because food is also a very important way that we can bring more of the spiritual into our daily lives. So food is an often overlooked part of spirituality. I think what it has to do with is, like, many people think about spirituality as being about ascension, about kind of lifting up out of the mundane world, and food seems like a mundane thing, so it gets sort of overlooked when we're talking about spirituality. But literally everything starts with the food that you put into your mouth. And when people say you are what you eat, it's literally true. The foods that you eat break down into molecules that are eventually used to rebuild your body, repair your body, and recreate new cells. And so the food you put in is really important. And of course, I don't have to, I'm not saying anything novel or new here when I say that the food of today is not as good as probably the food of 100 years ago. Probably not as nutritious. There's a lot of fast food. There's a lot of processed food. There's a lot of additives. And so we have become kind of very disconnected from the natural rhythms of life because of the way that we eat. And so it's really important for us to stop and consider the food that we consume from time to time, and hopefully more than from time to time eventually, because our spirituality can be greatly affected by what is going on in our physical bodies. Our ancestors could stay more connected to the land because they were connected to the land through the foods that they ate. They didn't have refrigerated trucks that brought them pineapples to snow, let's say Chicago, where it's full of snow or something like that. They learned to preserve foods, which means that they could eat some foods out of season, but for the most part, our ancestors ate only what was there, only what was in season, and it was a way that they kept connected to the rhythm of life. So the energy of the land that you live on changes throughout the year, and that's true for our ancestors as well. And so as that energy of the land changed throughout the year, they consumed that energy through the foods that they ate. Now, today, with our processed foods and the foods shipped and everything like that, we can eat foods that aren't actually produced in the climates where we live. And like I said, it's caused us to become more disconnected, and it makes it harder for us to really continue our, or I guess to maximize our connection to spirit. So my suggestion is, we are probably not going to completely disconnect ourselves from the modern world, kind of go off the grid and only make our only grow our own food. So what can we do? If we're going to stay connected to the modern world, well, how can we deal with this? What can we do? So one of the things that we can do is we can attempt to eat as much as we can that's in season. And what you can do is you can go to the grocery store, and whatever is on sale in the produce section is oftentimes what is in season. So if I think here, like in Southern California, the time to get grapes is usually in the late summer and the early fall, and the prices fall down like really low because that's the time when those are at most in season. Now you try to go and get grapes, and they're going to be quite expensive. When it's time for cherries, it's kind of like the winter coming into the spring, but if you try to buy them at a different time of the year, here it might be very expensive. So that is one thing you can do, is just look at what produce is on sale at the supermarket, see how that changes, throughout the year, and see if you can buy more of those foods and incorporate them into the dishes that you are making. Buying local as much as you possibly can also help a lot. Try to find farmers markets if they have farmers markets near you. Try to see if the grocery store, if they don't have farmers markets, try to see if the grocery store that you shop at has a section, or has it labeled where things come from. Like, you can go to the grocery store, at least I think of the one that we go to, and it will say whether something came from California or it didn't come from California. So I know that it can get costly to do this, and it's not meant to stress you out and make it seem like you got to spend all this money. You don't, because I'm suggesting going and finding things that are on sale as an easy way to kind of know what's in season. But the other thing you can do too is, if you don't know, Google what's in season in my area and see what kinds of foods are in season. And it's a way that you can subtly start to help bring in more of that kind of energy into your daily practice that keeps you more connected to the spirit of the land that you're living on, which in turn spiritualizes your daily life in a lot of ways. So that segues us into the next idea, which is cooking and eating with intention. So once we've sort of selected the foods that we are going to choose, and hopefully a few of them are in season, we can also incorporate magic into our cooking, because cooking is magic. And if you really think about it, magic from our perspective is kind of transforming. Alchemy, right, is transforming one thing into another thing. Magic is sort of making outward things change in the outside world in accordance to our will. And we could all also probably say it's also making things change within us in accordance to our will. But what it comes down to is the idea that it is changing something. So you can infuse your food. So backing up, the process of cooking itself is a chemical transformation, which we don't necessarily think of that as being magic, but it's literally changing one thing into something else. Taking these molecules and changing their arrangement and making them have a different chemical formula when we bake something or we cook something, right? So another thing you can do, that's just at its simplest level, cooking is magic. But you can also infuse your foods with white light, with love, or even with simple intentions as you're cooking. You can, as you're stirring, you can stir clockwise or diacetyl, and you can infuse that food with an intention of drawing something in, and that connects to that clockwise movement. Alternatively, if you want to let go of something, you want to banish something, you can stir counterclockwise and you can infuse the food with an intention of releasing or letting go. Now, if you are not the cook, like I am not the cook in the house, you can also still stir your food in this way. So it doesn't have to be done when you are doing the cooking. You can do it when the food has been served to you. You can still infuse the food with your intention. Now, you can also bless the food that you are eating. And so sometimes people don't even think about this. Like when they come to a path like witchcraft, they're like, they may have negative memories of perhaps being Christian and having to pray before every meal. But the idea is similar, and we as witches can bring in a very similar idea. I think it's more proactive though, because what we do rather than just pray for something, we can offer gratitude, and then we can also infuse the food with energy. So my favorite way to do this is to rub the nail beds together, and you have to and this is a way that you can raise energy for anything. You can raise energy in spell work this way. I love this practice. I find it raises more energy than rubbing your hands together. Now, if you have manicured nails, you may want to be careful about this. But I do not, and so I don't care. And so you just kind of vigorously rub your nails together. Now, the best thing is if you can do this for 30 seconds to a minute. You're going to raise even more energy. And then so you just do this for a while. And then eventually you take your hands and stop. And then you place your hands over the food. And then you just imagine sending that energy down into the food. And if you've done this for 30 seconds to a minute, you're going to feel, many people will feel this kind of vibration in the hands as the energy radiates from their hands. So it could be a really powerful practice. And essentially, what we are doing is we're sending prana, we're sending life force energy into the food that then helps to nourish the energetics of the body when we consume that food. In addition to the good things it's also doing to our physical body. And you can also do it with a glass of water. So when you wake up in the morning, pour yourself a glass of water. Even better, put a little lemon in it. That is known to jumpstart your digestion and get you ready for the first meal of your day. And then you can rub your fingers together. And then you can direct that energy down into the water. And then as you are drinking the water, imagine that you are infusing your body with that intention. What a great way to start the day, right? So much of the time we are hitting the snooze button. We're rolling out of bed quickly. I do it all the time. But if we can just pause for just those couple of minutes, get ourselves a glass of water, infuse it with a really nice intention to start the day, I venture to say the day might be a little bit different, right? And hopefully in a better way. So that is infusing your food or your water in cooking with intention. Okay, so just pause and look at the chat here for a bit. So I see that people are going back and talking about the tarot question. Glitter was saying tarot is a labor of love. Yeah, it is, and it is one of those things. Like it's not always a practice that's picked up really fast, and so Glitter is absolutely right. Working through the tarot slowly, starting to understand what the cards mean to you, is one of the best things you can do. And Jamie said you could do a whole 78 classes on tarot. Yeah, you could do a class on every single card, right? Now, there is a book that's called Around the Tarot in 78 Days. It's a really good book that helps a person just sort of work through one card a day and start to understand what it means for them. There's another book called Tarot for the Self by Mary Greer. And that is a great book it's kind of like a workbook-ish book, but it goes through each of the cards. It helps you, again, explore the cards and understand what they mean to you. And I think that is more highly effective than just memorizing whatever the descriptions are in the little book that comes with your deck, because you get to really incorporate it into yourself and start to understand what the cards mean for you. You start to have a better connection to them. Jamie said that she has a whiteboard on the wall across from her bed. She said every month I write a new affirmation on it. She said it's the first thing I see in the morning, the last thing I see at night. And she said that's her affirmation jar. Yeah, it's a great idea. I love post-it notes too. Like anywhere that you can find a place to put up something positive words somewhere is always going to be helpful. Um, just said she likes the affirmation jar idea and had never heard of it before. Glitter said it's all about the feast, talking about the foods. Yeah. And Jamie said you can still get seasonal food even if they are shipped from somewhere. She said she loves the apples in the fall. Yeah, absolutely. You could still get seasonal food even if it comes from somewhere else. Jess said the food can also work the other way around. She said, for example, I struggle with the long Canadian winter, so eating tropical foods during the time helps me lift my spirits. Yeah, exactly. So I think the idea with it is just being cognizant of the foods, right? So Jess is eating the tropical fruits because it helps lift her up in when it gets very dark and kind of dismal in the winter. But she knows the intention and she knows why she's doing it. So I think it's when we go through our mundane worlds and we're not even thinking about what we're eating and we're just kind of like processed foods, not really thinking about where they come from. I think that's where people have the tendency to get more disconnected. But definitely when we have the reasons and we know why we're eating certain things, it becomes part of our spiritual practice, and it's great. It's a beautiful pick me up. Okay, so a couple more ideas. The next one is the spontaneous day. I've talked about this one a lot before. It's one of my favorite things, but it's worth mentioning again for anybody who's never heard it. So the idea behind spontaneous day, or we could call it spontaneous hour or spontaneous part of a day if you can't spare a whole day, is that far too much of our time has had to become structured just because of the way that the modern world is in our society. And we have this idea sort of linear time, which we need in order to function on a calendar, in our jobs, things like that. But we don't need to be functioning in that linear time at all times. And so it's really nice if we can kind of check out of it every once in a while, check out of our schedule, because our schedule can disconnect us from the deeper things that are going on around us. And we see this a lot in people who have to work when they are sick. You know, we live in a society that forces people, it makes people think that they can't take time off. And it can be like sort of just their own thoughts, or it can be literally that they have bosses or they have jobs that will not let them ever take time off. And when you get sick, it's your body's way of telling you that you need to slow down and you need to take care of it. And then you're being forced out into the workplace, right? And all of your other commitments that you have to do. So, not going to be a way around that in a lot of cases. And so, that is why the spontaneous day can be such a great practice to do, a great exercise to do every once in a while. So the idea here is that you connect to natural time when you're off your schedule and when you're on a spontaneous day. You get to connect to your own natural rhythms and not this sort of like formulated, human made schedule that most of us have to follow. The spontaneous day also makes you more keenly aware of the signs and the synchronicities that are coming in from the universe. So, what I suggest is if you can take a full day to do this, or at least like an 8 hour day or something like that, if you can spare that, you're going to find great benefit from the practice. But even if all you can do is spare an hour or two at a time, it will work as well. So you're going to pick a time when you're not going to be disturbed, whether it's the day or just an hour or two. And I recommend that you be alone during this because I think that the idea it's an exercise to help you connect to yourself. And if you're with other people and you're an empath in particular, half the time you're going to be worried about those people or you're maybe like keyed into their energy. And it's really important for you to do this practice for yourself, not for other people. You can tell people about the practice, but don't let them kind of piggyback onto it and be part of yours. Have them do it on their own. Now, once you pick the day or the few hours you're going to do this, then you are going to go out into the world. You can walk, you can bike, You can drive. You can do whatever you need to do. I recommend being on a bike or being on foot because the world moves slower when we travel that way than when we're in a car. But the car, I've done spontaneous day in the car, and it does work, and it's cool too. So a lot of different options here, and you are going to set out on the day with literally no destination. There's no way, no destination. You're not like out for a walk where you're on a route or anything like that. You're just leaving the house. It can feel kind of weird because you're gonna leave the house. You're gonna be like, what do I do, right? And what you're gonna do is you're gonna take anything with you that before you leave, you feel intuitively like you need that thing. Who knows why you need it, but you're gonna take anything with you that you kind of feel like you're gonna intuitively need, and then you're just gonna begin walking or driving. You're gonna allow your own intuition to guide you, to tell you where to turn. Turn on this street, go down this way. Whatever pops into your head, don't second guess it. Kind of going back to that idea. If you want to strengthen your intuition, we can't be second guessing. And you're just going to go out and you're going to explore the world with openness and curiosity, being open to signs and symbols and synchronicities that unfold around you. I would recommend bringing with you a small journal or a small notebook, or at least your phone. Now, the phone is not so that you're on it, doing app, but being on apps or things like that, and getting distracted with text messages. It is, I put the phone on silent, do not disturb, but you can speak into your phone if you're somebody who'd rather take notes that way, just speaking about things that you are noticing out in the world around you. So this can be a great way to connect to spirit as well as the elements, a great way to connect to the universe. It also can be very, very grounding. It helps you connect to the earth in a better way. But it also can connect you to other elements because the elements of air and fire have the intention of spontaneity with them. They're infused with that energy, and you're being spontaneous when you have your spontaneous day. It also can help you produce more of a flow state, which connects you to the element of water. So I really love it because it helps you sort of balance out all of the elements within you. So try it and tell me how it goes. One of my favorite things to do. I like to do a full day if I can, but at least a good, 3 or 4 hours. But if all you can spare is 1 hour, try it, and you're still going to get a great benefit out of it. Okay, and then that kind of leads us into a similar idea as adding spiritual contemplation to just everyday actions. This is a way to help you keep more mindful, stay more mindful. Um, it's a really good way to help you see that there really is more of magic in your everyday life than you think, more magic in the mundane than you might realize. If you can focus on the symbolic nature of life that's unfolding around you, you can honestly spiritualize literally anything that you are doing. So, sweeping the floor, for example, you can imagine that you are sweeping your heart clean, right? Or you could sweeping away your negative emotions, or you're sweeping the dust off your dreams. So there's just a lot of ways that you can infuse really, really what looks like a very mundane action with something very magical through the power of your intentions. Washing your windows has you can think of that as adding clarity to your vision, so that you can see your goals more clearly. So you could set an intention for literally everything you have to do. Vacuuming is sucking up sort of the dust that is covering everything in your life, or doing laundry can be very cleansing. Sweeping is very cleansing. Cleansing to your emotions and to your aura. So try to find something symbolic in everything you do. It doesn't mean that we are searching for connections that aren't always there. Sometimes, we talk about synchronicity and we're like, nothing's coincidence, everything is synchronous. And there is a reality to that. But sometimes, Sigmund Freud said, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. And what he meant by that is that in his studies of dream working, cigars meant penises. And, but even he would say that sometimes the cigar was just a cigar. And so the reality is that sometimes mundane things are just mundane things. But that doesn't mean that you can't try to find deeper meaning in the things that you experience around you, because there is so much deeper meaning that we're often not able to see. And it's clouded and it's veiled from us just because of the modern world we have to live in. So we need a little bit more effort to kind of find the more spiritual around us. You can also slow down a little bit more, practice more mindfulness. In your mundane chores, do some breath work while you're doing chores. Just see how that changes your energy. And if you can walk to places that you would normally drive, that goes back to kind of the spontaneous day. But you could, even when you're not on a spontaneous day, maybe you can walk instead of drive somewhere if you're able to, and that allows you to slow down a little bit and see things that you might not otherwise have seen. Okay, and then that brings us to kind of our final idea here, and this is making your workspace more witchy. And I love this idea. This comes from a couple of years ago. Someone in our group was talking about adding different elements, like witchy elements, to his workspace. And it really got me thinking about it too. I work from home now since the pandemic, and there's really no reason I can't have like really spiritual things in my workspace, right? I don't have to just sit at a desk with a computer like I might have to at an office or something like that. So I started to bring in some salt lamps and some crystals, and just the small little gestures actually ended up making a very big difference. And so that's why I really love this idea. So if you are somebody who works from home, easier. If you're somebody who works in an office, it can still be done. And it doesn't have to be like, if you're not out at your office as a witch, if you think there would be problems about being out as a witch, you can hide it. You can do subtle little things. So I'm going to give you some ideas, some more overt, some more subtle. And just think about bringing one of these things, one or maybe more of these things, into your workspace and see how it changes. So you can do what I did. You can bring in the salt lamp. You can bring in some crystals. If you do that, those things are pretty commonplace. You can buy stuff like that at Sprouts and Whole Foods and even like regular grocery stores now. So no one's really going to bat an eye if somebody has like a quartz crystal on their desk and a salt lamp. Hopefully not. You can also bring in oil diffusers, as long as the other people you work with don't mind the scents that you're using. It's a nice way to bring essential oils into your space, which can also change your energy and your vibration. You can write down mantras, sigils, and symbols. You can put them up on sticky notes or write them in your cubicle or around your desk. You can keep a mini altar at your desk. I've seen people do a lot of different things, seashells and stones. I've even seen when people had to hide, let's say they really have to hide, they put like a plant, and you can put the stones in the soil, like on top of the soil of the plant, so they're not kind of overtly out there. And then I've even seen people put like an image of the goddess, and they just put it behind the plant so that other people aren't seeing it, but they know it's still there. So lots and lots of things we can do. You can enchant your jewelry with different intentions that enchant the jewelry that you're wearing to work. You can make crystal water, like a crystal water spray or even a moon water spray, and you can kind of spray that around your desk. Super easy. You just get some water, you put some crystals in it, you let it sit there for a while, it infuses the water with the energy of the crystals, then you put it into a spray bottle. It doesn't have any scent to it at all, so it's not going to bother people, and then you can spray it around, and now you've kind of infused your space with the energy of the crystals. You can also do it with moon water. You can get little terrariums that you can put out, miniature sand gardens. I even saw, like the little Zen sand gardens. I was looking for ways that my friend has a boss that she doesn't like her boss. Her boss is really a nightmare, and my friend is like, you know what? I don't care. Like, I'm kind of out. I'm gonna be out as a witch, and so she's looking for like witchy things to put on her desk to kind of like take her boss off. And so I was on Amazon, and I saw they have little Zen gardens that are made like little graveyards. And they have shovels and little coffin and little skeletons and ghosts and things. It's super cool ideas. So a lot of things that you can bring in, depending on whether you're out as a witch or not out as a witch at work. But try that and just see if that infuses. We all got it. Most of us have to go to work. A lot of times we don't like to, and especially if it's not a kind of spiritual job that you have, this is a way that you can bring more of the spiritual into the mundane. Okay, so I hope that helps. That's everything I have prepared for today. So I am going to go to the Q&A now, and then I'll go and I'll check the chat. I have one question that was sent to me. It's a really good question, and there's a lot of parts to it. And I think many people are probably going to benefit from multiple parts of this question, and then we'll see what's in the chat. So this is a question from Courtney, and it's kind of a long question, so I'm actually going to read all of it because I know that other people are going to relate. So she starts by asking, how do I quiet my mind? So she said, currently I am reading Matt Oren's book, Psychic Witch, and I cannot get past the first activity, which is counting or clearing your mind as you count down from 100 to 0. She said, I just can't do it. She said, I'll get into it, and then I have thoughts that come up, and another thought comes up, and it's frustrating to say the least. And she's kind of pulled out of like what she's doing. She said, I know I have psychic abilities. I lost them in my late teens, and I can't even get through this first chapter of the book to attempt to get back what I had. So very good question. I'm positive that Courtney is not alone in multiple aspects of this question. So I'm going to break this down into a few ideas that I have. And then I'm also going to share an old episode of Ask Aislin, which I think may help as well. So the first thing that I want to start by saying is that meditation and the practices that you use to recover your spirituality or your psychic abilities or whatever it is that you're focused on is not a one size fits all kind of journey. And so books are great. These are ideas that work for the author, and these are also ways that work for many people, or the book wouldn't be popular. This is a very, very popular book. But just because the way doesn't work for you doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. It may mean that you need to just find a different method of clearing your mind. And honestly, counting down from 100 to 0 is difficult for a lot of people. So what I would recommend, okay, so I have a lot of thoughts here. So one thought is take it in smaller chunks first. See if you can count down from 10 to 0. If you can't do that, see if you can count down from 5 to 0. You know, eventually, if you can do 5 to 0 and then 10 to 0 and then 20 to 0, eventually you will be able to get up to 100 down to 0. But starting at 100 to 0 might be difficult for a lot of people. And also the idea too, like with Zen meditation, which is where that idea comes from, in Zen meditation, you're not meant to start at a number and count down perfectly. The idea is to train yourself over time. So in Zen meditation, people are usually taught to start at 10 and go down to 0. And then they go back to 10 and they go down to 0. But the idea is that if you start to find your mind being pulled out, you just start back at 10 and you start counting down. And every time your mind is pulled out, you just start back at 10. And it does get frustrating, but it's a much smaller amount of counting that it doesn't feel, I think, as overwhelming as starting at 100. Now, I really do believe that you can eventually build up to 100, but you may need to start smaller. And that is a big thing for a lot of things. In fact, I want to do a whole episode on just starting small because on many different things in people's lives, because I think that can be a big hindrance for people is the goal is too big and they can't really get past it and they get frustrated and they think they're doing something wrong and you can see how the thoughts spiral and then they just kind of lose hope about it. So that would be my first thought is sort of break it down, start 5 to 0, 10 to 0, and build up to the 100 to 0 eventually. Now the other thing is that you might want to try different ways of meditating as well. And so I'm going to put an old episode, not really old, but it's from several months ago. I'm putting an episode in the chat that is about meditative techniques for witches. This is based on my experience working with students who have learning differences. Not everybody can meditate in the same way. And so this is why it's really important to understand it's not really a one-size-fits-all solution. Sometimes the Zen meditation doesn't work for people. Sometimes guided visualizations don't work for people because they're not very good at visualization, or it's just not the strongest of their senses. Sometimes people have various things like ADHD, and it makes it hard to sit still, and then they think that meditation can't work. So for every single person that comes to me and says, I can't meditate. I always have an answer for you. The answer is you just haven't found the right way to meditate for you right now. And that can change over time. So I recommend checking out that video. I talk about different forms like walking meditation, candle gazing, moving meditation, intuitive movement. There's a lot of different ways to start. The idea about meditation isn't that it's like meditation isn't a like a one, like I said, a one size fits all. It's the idea of meditation is how we get into alpha. If you can find a good way to get into alpha, which is just simply a way of changing your brainwave patterns, you are in a meditative state. That is the whole goal. If you can get into alpha, then you have better access to your spiritual gifts and your intuition, which is what you're trying to get to, right? But don't be frustrated by the one way that didn't work. I also say if you want to continue with his book, just skip that part and keep going. I mean, unless he says in the book that you absolutely cannot skip that part and you must do this before you move on, just skip it. I know sometimes we, myself included, can be kind of perfectionistic. I want to like master everything as I go through the book. But if you're having trouble with it, move on. Keep going. Get other insights from the book and see if you can find a different way to meditate. And hopefully that video will help give you some ideas. Okay, so I hope that helps. But I know I thought this was a really great question because I know that Courtney is not alone in the way she's feeling. Okay, let me see if there are any any questions here. So just gonna go back here. Tracy was saying she lays down for a couple of hours when she gets home from work and she rests with her cat to reconnect. Yeah, animals and rest are so powerful, especially for those of us who are empaths. I know that Tracy is, and she works around people who she's picking up a lot of energy from people. So great to just reconnect with an animal and just kind of rest. Such a very beautiful practice and a very beautiful gift to give yourself. Jess likes the spontaneous day. She's definitely trying that. Yeah, one of my favorite activities. Jamie said, speaking of finding spiritual meaning in the mundane, she said, I've been working with Hecate a lot lately with shadow work. She said, I have a whole thing on the full moon. I had a whole thing on the full moon. She said, I took my daughter to school this morning and there were a bunch of crows flying around the parking lot. She said, nothing new, but I made a caw noise at them and they talked back. Oh man, I love talking to animals like that. That was cool. She said, so that was kind of amazing and changed my mood instantly. Totally. Connecting to animals in some way, connecting to beings outside of us, such a powerful way to just feel connected, right? Um, Okay. And Glitter said a great idea learning how to set achievable goals is harder than it sounds. Yeah, in 100%. And I am absolutely going to be doing an episode on this because literally I was just like, I've been having trouble drinking water and I get overwhelmed when people say, like, you have to drink 150 ounces of water a day and you got these big Nalgene bottles. And it's just, I can't get past it. And so someone yesterday told me, take all the water in the big Nalgene bottle and pour it into little cups, and all of a sudden I can drink it. It's crazy. So it just got me thinking that sometimes it's the overwhelm. I know a lot of people have been helped by when I say you don't have to do a practice that's an hour long. 5 minutes a day or most days of a spiritual practice is all that a person needs to start getting them more connected. So when we can break things down into more achievable goals, we're more likely to get the results that we want. So, and that goes for mundane things like drinking water to more magical things like trying to meditate. And okay, so well, anyway, I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode. Let me just tell you what's coming up, and if there's any other questions in the chat, I'll get to those before I leave. Next week, I'm going to be on vacation, and there's a chance that I'm going to be going live on Tuesday and doing my Ask Aislin from where I'm going to be. My friend is studying labyrinths in a class on religion that he's taking right now, and we have this thought that maybe we'll go live, and he's going to join me on the live and share all he's learned about labyrinths. We thought that could be a really cool episode. So we will see. I am supposed to be on vacation, so if it looks like it's going to be a lot of work to get the episode to air, we may skip it, but if not, we will be going live. I'll probably be posting around Sunday to let people know. If we don't have an episode next week, we will be back on 128, and we'll have an episode on celebrating Imbolc, because we are very close to the start of Imbolc season. And then for those of you who would like to celebrate Imbolc, if you are local to the Los Angeles area, my coven of Midnight's Flame, will be performing a ritual at the Crooked Path in Burbank, California, on the 1st of February. But for those who are not local, we will be doing an online version of that ritual on the 2nd of February. And so that ritual, if you're in our coven, our online coven, if you're in our Shadow Seekers membership, you guys all will be invited to that. And even if you're not in one of those groups, you will be able to get a ticket for that online ritual on the 2nd through a donation. And we'd love to have you guys join us too. So just look for more information about that as we get closer to Imbolc. All right. So I am going to sign off here. Jamie said she would love to see you Tuesday, but if you don't, it's fine. She said enjoy your break, have fun, and be safe. Yeah, I have not taken a vacation in quite some time, like a real vacation where I'm not going to work much, so it's much needed. But my friend, he really likes the idea that I do these lives, and he wants to be in front of the camera too. So I think he would love to get on and share with us. So we'll see. We may be joining you at least for some type of an episode next Tuesday. All right, so as always, I love spending Tuesday evenings with everybody here. So if you like what you hear, make sure to leave a thumbs up or a heart somewhere in the video. It helps us get this out to the feed of more people. If you don't know about our YouTube channel, Body Mind Witchcraft, check out our YouTube channel. All of the episodes are also uploaded to that, and you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, and that way you won't miss a single episode. And of course, leave your questions and comments, and I will go back through the feed and I will answer anything that I missed. All right, until next time, blessed be.